except for whatever the that was.
Hey y'all, my name is Nat. I hope you're having a terrific day today, and for this video, I'm going to be doing an author taste test for Allison Saft. Alright, so before we get into anything bookish, make sure to hit like and subscribe down below, as well as tell me in the comments, have you read from this author? Do you love this author? Do you hate this author? Let's talk about it. So if you're new here, I give authors 2 chances. They have 2 opportunities to wow me, and if I don't like both those books, so long, sorry, not reading anything else from you. So in order for an author to be considered for this reading project, I have to have at least 2 books from them on my TBR. And I think I currently have 4 from Allison Saft. I've been wanting to read from this author ever since I heard somebody sell A Far Wilder Magic as Full Metal Alchemist fanfiction for Roy and 𝗖cie. Fairly certain that was Hannah at A Clockwork Reader. First off, love her. Second off, thank you for selling it that way. And third, she and I tend to have very similar tastes, so I'm hopeful I will love this one just as much as she has. So in this, we are set in a fantastical world where our main character, Margaret, her mother is a famous alchemist. Majority of the year, her mother spends out in the field and she is alone in this town where she is an outsider. However, this year she ends up seeing the 𝗖cie, a mysterious creature that is the focus of a hunt in her village. It's told whoever manages to capture it will have fame and riches, and Margaret is determined she is going to do this because she is a phenomenal sharpshooter, but she needs an alchemist partner. Luckily for her, enter Weston, who has traveled to Margaret's home, determined to learn under her mother's tutelage, except her mother is not there. So Margaret kind of connives her way into working with Weston so that they can enter this hunt, in the hopes that this will fulfill Margaret's dreams, while at the same time help Weston to impress her mother so that when she returns, she will take him on as a student. And although these two don't start off on the best foot, along the way a romance ensues. Obviously with the alchemist element, I'm not really surprised that Full Metal Alchemist gets compared, and then Margaret being a sharpshooter, also not surprising that compared to 𝗖cie. I was very excited going into this one. I was equally excited for A Dark and Drowning Tide, which is a sapphic dark academia story where we are following a folklorist who is on an expedition to try and find this spring that promises untold power. But she is on this expedition along with 6 other scientists, none of whom like her, and one of which is her academic rival, Sylvia. However, things take an unfortunate turn when Lorelai and Sylvia's mentor is actually found dead. And the responsibility for this expedition is thrust upon Lorelai's shoulders, as well as trying to figure out who is responsible for her mentor's passing. I mean, fantastical mystery, love that. Folklore elements, absolutely here for it. Sapphic romance, yeah, you can understand why I was excited. So going in, this was a really promising reading vlog, and you guys will just have to watch to find out how this went.
Hey guys, so I have hit the halfway point into A Far Wilder Magic, and I am adoring this. I did not realize this was going to have religious themes, religious discourse going on in the story, but yeah, that's almost an automatic way to win me over, especially in a fantasy book. I'm so all over it. I believe I've put together that it is Protestants who are the majority, Catholics, and then Jewish. They are not referred to as such, but I believe that is who the 3 major religions we've been introduced to are. All of their religions have ties to alchemy, but they all treat it in very different ways. So for example, what I believe are supposed to be the Protestants, the Catholics, they treat these beings as almost like demons. They were cast away by God. They were originally given part of his abilities, but they abused it, and so they were cast out as such. In comparison to, say, the 𝗖cie, I believe, are the Catholics, who treat them more like extensions of God. They may cause bad things to happen, but that is not intentional. It's just their way. It's what they do. I don't think we really got an exploration of what the Jewish equivalent thinks of them, because that hasn't really come up yet, but it's very interesting, and I love learning about each of these religions, how they differ, how they interact with one another. Again, their ties to alchemy, it's all fascinating. I also didn't realize that this had such ties to Irish culture. Our male main character, Wes, his mother is named Aoife, which is a more traditionally Irish name, His mother also refers to him utilizing a Gaelic term. I wish I could remember, but there was something else that tipped me off to like, oh, okay, he's Irish. It wasn't this, but the narrator for him on the audiobook does kind of give him almost like an Irish New Yorker accent. That's kind of what he sounds like. Wes is a very interesting character. He is determined to make change politically. However, in order to be a politician in this society, you have to be an alchemist, which he can do alchemy, but because he is 𝗖cie, he isn't really given the opportunities to learn. And so Margaret's mother is really his last resort. He is desperate to make this work, and if he doesn't, he's going to have to return home and probably just get a traditional job, which will just dash all of his hopes and dreams. So interesting because he treats everything so light and easy. He expects to disappoint people so that he won't in reality actually disappoint them because they've expected it from the start of him. Margaret is the serious one in this friendship. Unfortunately, has also dealt with a lot of prejudice in her life, but she has sort of just taken it and pushed all of that down, and so she's become a rock when it comes to other people. She does not know how to socialize with other people because she has isolated herself so much. There are a lot of familial feels in both of their stories as well. I've just really enjoyed the different themes that are coming up in this story. The dynamic between them has already altered so much. It doesn't even quite come across as romance yet. It's just that they're getting to know each other so much better. They're able to read each other's cues, how they react, they're understanding why they act the way they do. There's aspects of their lives that they're both ashamed of, and the other person has been privy to that. And then, as I said, he grew up 𝗖cie while her father is Udamir? Udar. I don't remember what it was. Basically, they are both minorities and treated poorly because of that, so they can connect on that level. I mean, I knew I was gonna like this book. I did not expect to love it as much as I am right now. I could definitely see this being a 5-star, but it's really gonna depend on how the romance is handled, because thus far, it doesn't even feel romantic yet. It still feels like they're just friends. They're really starting to just respect one another and understand the other person, and I do love that. I want more of that. Hey y'all, so I have finished out A Far Wilder Magic, and wow. I know I went into this with pretty high expectations, and that's because I'd pretty much only heard people give this positive reviews. It lived up. It was so good. Looking back on it, I can find flaws, I will say that. However, it's very hard to fault them for it because I had a phenomenal time reading this. It was fantastic. I was just completely engrossed anytime I picked it up. I talked about before that I was all over the religious aspects of the story, and that continued all the way through. I particularly really enjoyed learning about how alchemy played a role in the religions within the society and how their views of it differed. That was just fascinating to me. But we didn't get a lot of exposition around how this world is set up. It was much more focused on the alchemy and the religious aspects, which again, I was all over. So it's very hard for me to find an issue with other world building when I didn't even really think about that until after the fact. I loved the dichotomy between our main characters. I think both of these characters were fully fleshed. I think they had very well explored backgrounds that explained the personalities they had, the actions they would take, the concerns they voiced, and the ones they only thought about. Both of them had so many similarities, but also were so different, and that's why I say I love the dichotomy between them, and I think it developed this fantastic dynamic that we saw grow from the start of this book, where they don't really like each other, but they're having to put up with one another, to the middle where they've become very good friends. They respect one another, but they haven't taken that jump yet. And then to the end where they are just over the moon, and I was with them. I just feel like the development of their relationship was so believable here, especially off of the background we saw from them. The issues they had were based in logic from everything we'd seen, and I was very impressed with it. The plot itself, I wasn't sure how I was going to feel about it going into this. It seems interesting, but like, I don't want to read almost 400 pages of a fox hunt. But that's not really what it is. There's a lot of build up to it, and then there's so much interacting between these different characters, the town itself, exploring of this world and like what this hunt really means, the impact it'll have on the main characters we're following, but the world itself. Once I got into the real meat of all of that, I was hooked. Every time I picked this book up, I just wanted to keep going. I wanted to keep reading. And then when we get to the actual hunt itself, I'm surprised to say that I was actually at the edge of my seat. I was all over it. I was so excited, which I did not anticipate from where we started. Like, I went into that aspect of the story with very low expectations, but I actually really enjoyed it. I tabbed this a lot. I didn't annotate it a ton, but I definitely can see this having great reread ability. Can't wait to go back through and make notes as I'm working and charting out the development of their relationship, seeing if I can suss out more about the religious discourse in this world. I loved it. I'm very impressed with this. Like I said, I can find faults, but because I had such a phenomenal reading experience, this was a big ol' 5 stars from me. I cannot wait to pick up the next book by Allison Saft now, because holy shit, this was fantastic. This was a great way to start an author taste test.
Hey y'all, so it has been a hot freaking minute since I updated this video because unfortunately it's taken a while for me to pick up a second book by this author, and that wasn't by choice. I would have loved to pick something up from her a lot sooner than now, but video plans just did not allow for that. So I'm finally here to talk to y'all about A Dark and Drowning Tide, and I've hit the halfway point into it, and I am really enjoying this, but I will say this book didn't quite meet my expectations, and I think this is kind of reinforcing something I've been starting to think about, which is need to like find a balance between knowing enough about a book so that I'm interested for the right reasons, but also not looking into it too much because I don't want to have certain expectations and then the book not live up to those. Basically, this is more fantastical than I was anticipating. Expedition element, of course, means there's more adventure to it. It's not like stuck in this one university setting. Plus, we get to see a little bit about each of these characters' specialties. Some of them are realistic, like there is a botanist, he's the kind of guy that would probably get mad if I said nurse, but like a nurse. I don't think he's technically high level enough to be constituted a doctor, but he's an expert in the medical field at the very least. But then at the same time, we have one who's like an expert in measuring magic, basically. Plus, we also have 2 experts in folklore, one of those being our main character, Lorelei. However, Lorelei doesn't really want to study folklore. She's kind of doing this because the woman who was her mentor took her under her wing, and she figured this was her opportunity to eventually, hopefully, get the rights necessary to actually study what she wants to, which is more along the lines of naturalism. However, with the folklore element, I'm so here for that. I really enjoy the fact that Saft is kind of introducing us to the folklore of this world by telling us these different stories and weaving them into the narrative of the actual book itself. Also have seen our characters experience some of these creatures from folklore, which is really fun. And like I said, it's kind of showing that this is a little bit more fantastical than I went into it expecting at the beginning. I also do really like our main character, Lorelei, which is funny to say because she is not a particularly likable character, but I can't help rooting for her. She's very prickly. She has a serious chip on her shoulder, but at the same time, the more we learn about her background, the more we understand her place in the society, the more understanding it is why she has developed this sort of a personality to protect herself. By extension, I really love her interactions with the love interest character, Sylvia. As of right now, they're like barely kind of starting to move past enemies, I guess I'll say. They know each other very well because they were both mentees under this doctor, but they've always kind of competed against each other, and their personalities are truly opposites. I really have liked that the more we get to see of Sylvia and the little bits we have had peeled back around her character, the more we understand that like they both have some serious baggage, they both have some serious trauma they're working through. In reality, there's aspects of them that aren't so different if they would just, you know, move past these initial issues they've hyper focused on. Plus, at the same time, each of them are kind of a threat to the king. And so there's like an additional element that's bringing them together and also, you know, forcing them to work and rely on one another to try and find who is responsible for their mentor's death. There's bits explored around colonization as the main country in this world has recently taken over smaller countries who were similar in culture or like spoke the same language, but obviously not all these other countries are particularly happy about that. Even so, we do start to see that many of them are connected in the fact that they look down on the Yeva, which Lorelai is, and it's basically a fantastical version of Judaism. The more we learn about the Yeva culture, the more connections there are to real-life Judaism. And of course, I'm really enjoying that because I like looking at religious themes woven into stories, how Lorelai has to deal with this, even though she herself is not particularly religious anymore, but she can't escape it because that is how she was raised, and there are little elements of her everyday life that are due to her culture. She can't escape how these allow people to treat her differently and to treat her more poorly, to be microaggressive towards her. I really enjoy seeing the little bits explored around that. It's definitely reminding me of A Far Wilder Magic, and so I am very here for that, and I love that Saft is exploring those themes in her work, and that's something that definitely means I need to check out more of her stuff. Then we've got the actual plot I went into this for, which is the fantastical mystery. Like I said, Lorelai and Sylvia are sort of working together, very sort of, but at the same time, she has told everybody else on this team that they shouldn't investigate it. They just need to be moving forward and continuing towards trying to find this magical spring. Yet she herself is continuing to investigate, and she knows for a fact that Sylvia is not responsible. She's the only person she knows can't have done it. So she has a unfortunate ally in her, but she's not really happy about that. And she's also not the smoothest operator when it comes to interrogating these different people on the team. So it's led to some really funny interactions there as well. Plus, in getting to know each of these characters, we're getting to see a little bit more about the world and the history that's gone on here, as well as the prejudices that have been going on throughout these many different countries, even though they're now assembled under one. I am really liking this overall, but unfortunately, I think the one downside I am having with this is because there's so much going on, it feels like we're not getting enough time to dive into some of the stuff I'm really loving as much as I would want. I honestly feel like the mystery element hasn't been as prevalent as I would have expected it to be, given the fact that it seems like the driving force of the story. I'm also like not super mad about that because I'm loving the other themes that we've seen. I just wish they were getting more page time. I wish we were getting more exploration of them. I would love more of the folklore elements and the fantastical bits there. Obviously, I would love more around the colonization and religious persecution discussions. I would also love to see a little bit more development of the romance, but like I said, I don't think Saft is really balancing all of these very well. So as of right now, like I'm estimating this at like 4 stars. I am really liking it. I'm very excited to keep reading. I'm not sure how it's gonna wrap out though.
Hey guys, so I have officially finished out A Dark and Drowning Tide by Allison Saft. Y'all saw me at the end of that last update. I was so excited. I was so happy. I was having a great time. This book ended on such a down note, really soured the rest of the story for me, and I'm very bummed about it, honestly. I think the strongest element of the story is Lorelai's character. I think she is written in a very compelling way. She's not likable, but you can understand her. The more layers that are peeled back, the more we start to see her. Everything kind of comes together to create this fully fleshed out character, but also the development we watch her go on throughout this story and in her relationship with Sylvia is slowly improving. I was so here for that. I thought it was very well done. I was so here for the romance, guys. I really liked it, especially since it doesn't feel like a very big focus for a majority of the book. What is there, I was so here for. The love declaration scene, gorgeous. There were some quotes about their romance, just and then a little bit of spice there too. I mentioned that I felt like Saft was trying to do too much. How it seemed as though she wasn't gonna have enough time to really fully flesh out political fantasy plotline, the world itself, and then also this mystery. And I was right. I actually initially felt that the mystery element could almost be knocked out. However, now I'm saying, no, I wish she would have completely removed the whole political element of the story and just purely focused on the mystery. I also feel like that would have allowed more time to flesh out this world, to have it come together, to answer all the questions, for it to make sense. I unfortunately was left wanting when it came to the world, which was such a shame because the bits that were there were very intriguing to me. I was really interested by them. When it comes to this political plotline, given the fact that she lives in a country that has recently colonized all of its neighboring countries after a war took place. How this book closes out basically villainizes the character who is trying to push against colonization and protect their nation and their beliefs, their culture. The fact that it villainizes that character is just so gross. and how Lorelai, who is a Yeva that has known oppression for all of her life, sides with her oppressor. Oh, yikes. Big yikes. I cannot believe that is the route Saft decided to go with how this book ends. Like I said, I think she should have completely removed this political angle of the story and purely focused more on the mystery and the romance. And then that may have also allowed her to give more time to the world. But with that, I just, no. So my rating on this is 3 stars because the romance, 4 stars. I also wasn't the biggest fan of like the finale elements that kind of caused them to have their third act drama. I just didn't really like that either. Especially after watching them go through all of this other stuff, it felt really ridiculous. The plot, like I said, there are bits here and there that I was invested in when it came to like the talks around religious persecution and the mystery. But with how this closed out, I couldn't give it more than 2 stars in my brain. So we're going right down the middle with a 3. This is not what I expected from how this video started. Am I going to read more from Allison Saft? Yes, because I do already own another book by her. If I can ignore how this book closed out, I would say a resounding yes, because there are so many elements of her storytelling and her writing that just like works so well for me. After this, I might be a little bit more hesitant. It's probably gonna maybe depend on the story. It might be a situation where I'm anticipating these books, but Saft is not gonna be an insta-buy author for me. I may wait to see what other people are saying about her newest work before I check it out myself. So much of her writing, very up my alley, except for whatever the that was. So, this was an unexpected note to end on. But all right, y'all, that is it for today. Thank you so much for coming to my channel. I really appreciate it. Make sure to hit like and subscribe down below. If you made it all the way to the end of this video, leave me some sort of a purple emoji in the comments. I have all my socials as well as a few ways you can support me linked in the description. I come out with videos on Monday and Friday, but until then, I hope you continue to have a terrific day. Love you, bye!